Hello folks, how are we getting on? Good, I hope. Hope everything is going well for you. As always, may all your endeavours be successes. Um, yeah. Now, sticking with the bourbon, sticking with the experimental bourbon, heading down different path, expanding with my horizons a little bit, maybe not being just as prejudiced against bourbons as I was, and I've been really looking forward to this because I caught up with the guys behind this way last year, and they're just eccentric is basically the word that comes to mind, and this is the Tobacco Barn Distillery, single batch, distilled in Maryland, straight bourbon. Okay, so the Tobacco Barn Distillery. And they're just a bit crazy, and all the better for it. The stuff that they do, the things that they come out with, the way they want to do things, and so on and so forth. A lot to be admired about it, a lot to be admired about the whole setup, the people behind it, and yeah. Now, Maryland is a very interesting place in that it's overshadowed by Kentucky and Tennessee these days in terms of whiskey production. But the earliest whiskey production in the US was really the Scots-Irish from back where I'm from, back in Northern Ireland, back in Ulster, coming across, moving over to the States, and essentially hitting the east coast of America and really trying to find their place. They were, in many ways, they were sort of jostled about. Nobody really wanted them there. They were the immigrants. They were themans, and they were moved about. And eventually, a lot of them settled down in Maryland and started distilling down there. And the earliest, don't quote me on this, but probably the earliest proper distilleries was down in that area. And they were not big commercial affairs, they were small farm distilleries. Basically, the farm, the guy went and done the farming, and the lady ran the house, and she made beer, and she would have upscaled it, sold it, if you like, sometimes to making whiskey. And the guys behind Tobacco Barn are sort of paying homage to this, in that their whiskey the bourbon is a rye forward. The mash bill's 25% rye, so it's a mix of corn and rye, so 75% corn, 25% rye. And it's grown on the farm, it's distilled there, it's aged in a couple of different places, including on a ship, and also aged in a fighter jet. I wondered about this because a fighter jet, the main guy behind the Tobacco Barn Distillery is a Rear Admiral of the US Navy, Scott Sanders. And how this all came about, he was in charge of the International Navy fleet, or whatever it was, whatever way you want to put it, against piracy of the east coast of Africa, Somalia and all that. I mean, you're dealing with international, so you have the Chinese and the Russians and everything, and he's in charge of it all. And what he said was, when he gave out some orders or gave out some suggestions and whatever to all these international people, hard to get people to listen. Reach them a bottle of booze, there you go, everything done, no problem. So he thought to himself, this is maybe something that we want to pursue when we sort of wind down and scale down. And heading towards retirement. I don't think he's officially retired yet. I think he's still got all his clearances, so he's not officially retired, but he thought bourbons and whiskey is the way forward. So he's a big fan of his bourbons. Now, I'm going to pour this a little bit. Now, one of the things that they also have, by the way, one of the distillers is a chemist and an engineer who used to work for NASA. So they've got lots and lots of sort of credentials in other areas, and then decided to transplant this skill set over to making whiskey, making bourbon. Now they have batches, and one of the things that's on this, and I take my hat off to this kind of thing, because it gives you a level of transparency that's hard to find in other people. Tells you exactly on the bottle. You don't have to go to websites, don't have to do anything. Each sticker goes on there as the batch, the bottle, the distiller, and the age of the spirit. 4 years, 7 days, right down to the day. And that's, so basically it's all the stuff that they're bringing out, a single cask. Now it's 45% ABV, and fairly simple, plain design, packaging, nothing wrong with that. I would imagine going and doing a tour with these guys, fingers crossed I get to do this at some point someday, would be a lot of fun, because they seem to be enjoying what they're doing, putting out, thinking of what way can we promote it again. The one that they did with the 700 miles an hour bourbon, I got in contact with Scott, and I said, look, could we get an interview for our show on Saturday nights, me and Justin? And he said, yeah, no problem at all, no problem. We'll get a look at it. We'll get chatting to you. And I said, well, how did that come about? And he said, well, my friend owns a Harrier jump jet, and I own a distillery, so why not? I had to explain to him in the UK, you can go to jail for having a little penknife. It doesn't have to be a big penknife. If you got a 3-inch penknife, you could go to jail. For having a Stanley knife in public, you could go to jail. But he has a friend who's got his own private fighter jet. So what they did was, and they've already done this, you can go and check it out. It's on their, it'll be on their web pages or YouTube somewhere, I can't remember. We did a little bit on the show, and they strapped 2 casks of bourbon to a jet and broke the sound barrier. Mental, but they had fun, and this is there's too much seriousness in the world. Too many people get very hung up on being serious, and the whiskey world and the wine world and all these people, they go, and they're snobby about the whole thing, and I don't drink this, this is a single malt aged over it. Piss off, have fun with the whole thing, that's the point of it. Nice deep rich notes to it, honey, tropical fruit, that vanilla notes that you get from bourbons, from the heavy char. Now they do level 3 char, quite heavy, and they age it quite funny. They age in slightly smaller casks. Your typical bourbon cask is 53 gallons, or about say 200 litres. They age in 30 gallon casks, which about 130 litres, thereabouts. So it'll age a bit quicker. So smaller casks. They grow their own crops on the farm. So it's a field to glass distillery, batched in all the details here. You can go on and check it out. They're a little bit eccentric, a little bit crazy, and so I buy into it. I love all this kind of stuff. There's a lovely cream nose to it, and when I say cream, it's actually more, rather than actually being an aroma or a scent, it's actually more a suggestion of something else. It's invoking a memory of cream, if you like, for myself. honey, honeycomb, vanilla. There's a wood note coming through on it. I wouldn't necessarily say it's overly sweet, but it has suggestions of sweetness. Now, 45% might take a little bit of water. First thing that hits you is warm spices. There's speckles of ginger there. There's little bits of nutmeg. There's a little bit of, I was going to say star anise, but it's maybe not star anise. But it's that sort of mix of spices that hit you first. Then there's that creamy note comes in again, a little bit more spice, some sugar, some vanilla, and it works through on the palate really, really quite well. Again, spice, honey. There's a very sort of rich cherryness to it, and it's not acidic. It's actually sweet, but it's that kind of cherry, honey, some spice. Again, finish for me for bourbons aren't what they're really supposed to be. Bourbon just hits you and it just sort of stays there. It doesn't develop a huge amount. The spice moves out on the finish and it just becomes a little bit more sugary and creamy and dissipates. Bourbons tend to just sit up there and not go punchy on the development, but that's lovely. I'm going to put a little tiny little bit of water in this, and the reason I'm going to do that is just to see what it does. Now, when you do that, you can see the oils still moving out on that, still moving out on it. Instantly, as soon as the water hits it, comes fresher, pulls it up a little bit more, and develops another little layer of taste coming up. So it's more like a breakfast cereal, with a little bit where the spice was there. It's lifted it a little bit, and it's a bit more zesty. So without it being, your ginger, it's actually lifted it a little bit, and it becomes slightly zesty. Moving through, there's an umami note now coming out, and the very tail end of the nosing, there's a slightly umami note, where it's that barbecue meat note that sometimes I get that really, really appeals to me, really works for me. That little touch of water has actually just made it just a little bit more balanced, a little bit more settled down. All those little notes. The woody note actually has come out a little bit further, where it's a little bit more green wood with the water in it, which is not a bad thing, to be honest. It's probably cut a little bit of the vanilla out, actually. I'll just take another taste of this. No, I stand corrected. I'm wrong. I was wrong. The vanilla's still there, but the little greeny note is there now. So it's a little bit zestier, a little bit greener. If you don't particularly like that, don't need to add water the next time. There's an awful lot on the finish. Just on the finish there, it's just went a bit more honeyed with that touch of water in it. Yeah. Tobacco Barn Distillery, again on this little bit of a bourbon discovery, and finding out that the main commercial bourbons that we get that are not typical of this. of typical of what is available in bourbon style. This, spicy, rich notes. It's got a great story to it. It's got fantastic owners to it. It's got all the sort of provenance you want. Everything's transparent. What's not to like? What's not to like about it? The whiskey, taste wise, it's extremely good. It's got complexity. You can play about with it. It's got high enough ABV that you can work with it too. And it's got everything from the slight zestiness, bit of spice, dark fruit, honey, all the way down to the umami note that I really like. So it's got nice layers of flavour. I really like it, and because I think the guys that are there are superb, it's going to get a little bit of a bonus mark for that, because if you follow the guys and follow what they do, you'll enjoy, buy into the story, because it's what you want. It's what you want from producers. You want a little bit maverick, a little bit bonkers, a little bit crazy, and so good on them. Keep up the good work. I guess, again, giving it a mark. I'm going to be a little bit biased, to be honest, because I just like all the story and like all the stuff that they do. 8.5 out of 10, and 4 years and 7 days old. So try and get yourselves a bottle of this. Now, it's not going to be in massive quantities for sale all around everywhere, but if you ever get a chance, do give it a try, because you'll enjoy it. And look up the distillery and look up the guys that are there. Top people doing good stuff. So thanks very much. Do join me and Justin on Saturday night, 10 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.